the current pandemic has struck very hardly the lives of all of us, but most especially the most vulnerable people in our societies throughout Europe and throughout the world. The Anti-Imperialist Week of Struggles is a process that was initiated some months ago as the initiative of a number of international political coordination networks, political parties, trade unions, and social movements. We gathered in the context of the first People's Assembly, International People's Assembly in Caracas in February 2019. And one resolution of that assembly was to set up or do an international call for organizing an anti-imperialist day of struggle. That proposal evolved in time. It was nurtured and fed by a number of contributions by different political spaces, organizations. And in the end, we decided in the beginning of this year to call for an international week of anti-imperialist struggles throughout the world. This was going to take place between May 25th and 31. And we were already working in the coordination with different social, political forces, setting up programs, organizing common actions, unitary actions. But then COVID-19 struck. And then we decided to reorganize the work that we have been doing throughout the world, but also in Europe. Ever since, in the last 6 weeks, we have been organizing weekly meetings where we try to consolidate different initiatives, bring together organizations that have responded to this call of action, and preparing for the moment that we will be able to come out from the lockdown and keep our ideas shared, our minds activated, and our will of struggle and confronting what most certainly will be the opportunity that the capitalists will try to take and squeeze even further all the peoples in Europe, the working class that is possessed. I want to share with you, before proceeding to the presentation of Ramon, in the chat, I am going to put one document, which is a 16-point program that was the common initiative of the the International People's Assembly and the Tricontinental. This document, it is a compilation of 16 points, a political program to coordinate struggles in the times of coronavirus, COVID-19. To date, we have received a total of 477 endorsements from 70 countries and all continents, including 8 international platforms, among which the International People's Assembly, La Via Campesina, the World Women's March, the European Left Party, as well as 229 organizations and 237 individuals, most of them intellectuals. So this is a document that you can read, you can support. I invite you to read it and support it. And without any more delay, I want to introduce our guest today, our main speaker. He's an academic, he is an expert, but he is most importantly a militant and a comrade. His name is Ramon Franquesa. He is a professor at the Faculty of Economics and Business at the University of Barcelona, and he is an expert in renewable resources and social economy. Also, he has a lifelong history of militant work. He has been one founder of the United Left in Catalunya. He has been also a member of Comisiones Obreras, a trade union in Spain. And currently he is an activist in the field of social movements, fighting mostly for social services, against austerity, for pensions, and he is also a member of the National Council of Catalonia. He is also a member of the United Network of what you could translate that into English. It's the network, Socialist Network, Unified Socialist Network of Catalunya. I'm sorry, Socialism 21. So I would like to give the floor to Ramon. We're going to have a presentation by him. It will last about 25-30 minutes. We will be getting your questions in the chat, and at the end of his presentation, we're going to give room to the questions and comments that you may have. So, Ramon, welcome. Thank you very much.
Well, Good afternoon for everybody. I try to make a synthetic exposition about the effects of this present crisis. My English is not very rich, but I try to support my explanation with a PowerPoint to facilitate the comprehension of the discussion. The first question is that now to make previsions on the future is very difficult. We not have many data about this crisis. Is, for example, some days after the Spanish government closed the people in the houses, radio tried to ask me about how many people estimate that in the district of the working people in Vallès Occidental can be lose their work in the next weeks. But it's very difficult to make previsions about the future. As the same in the game of the chess, we need the time more near best than the future. And in the chess, in the first movement, there are 400 possibilities, but in the second, there are practically 200,000 possibilities, and in the third, 120 million of possibilities. Now, to evaluate the consequence of the coronavirus is also very difficult. But in any case, we have some information that allow to us to improve some ideas for the future. Also, we have a problem, is that the problem is at this moment, the science has yet to answer very important questions as if the people infected are immune, yes or not, if it's yes for many time. A second question is the virus are capable to mutating as the indication of the flu or not. Other question to solve is we can dispose the effective vaccines in the short term or not, and if we have or not medicines for the recover the people infected. But this is the incognita, the difficulties. But in any case, we have experience from the history, from to now the way of working the capitalist system, the production technostructure of the capitalist system, and finally, we have also some information about the socio-political behavior of the people in this situation. About the first question, about the question of the history. We know that the epidemiological crisis can notably convulsing societies. They are in the past some historical experience that show the crisis of the epidemic crisis can produce very strong change in the society. But this effect can be very different. In some cases, high mortality favors the popular classes and hurts the ruling class because reduce the available population of workers. This is the case of the Black Plague in Europe in the century 20, that reduced in Europe the 30 one-third of the peasants and allow it for 300 years to the peasant to improve their rights over the lords. But in other case, if there were large population reserves, the worst affected were the popular classes. For instance, the Latin America indigenous population against the European disease due to the different genetic structure and also for the poor diet. Then we know that the epidemics can distort in a very important way the societies, but it's not clear in what direction. Now, the ore production technostructure, the capitalism system, have an enormous capacity to grow. In fact, the gross domestic product has doubled between 2005 to now. This is a figure very, very impressionant in the history, because the humanity need to pass from the year 0 to the year 1600. They are 16 centuries to double the domestic product. Now the capacity of growth of the system is very large, but by contrary, this growth, they are not distributed to the people. In fact, the poor people has equal poor or more than in the 2005. The production of goods now can be reduced significantly. The Monetary Fund estimate 80%. Others made some estimation at the present, Albert Rich from the London School, about a reduction of 20%. But in any or in other case, the question is who going to pay for this fall? Those that have appropriated the world surplus in the recent decades, for instance, have catch the double production from 2005 to now, or this reduction of production can be pushed over the popular classes. This is not established. This needs to be resolved in the street, in the social fight. Other question that we know is that at the present, globalization has shown its weakness. The industrialized countries, as Europe, as United States, cannot supply themselves because the privatization are destroyed the efficiency of essential service. They are lost the capacity of production. They suffer very high cost and difficulties and technological difficulties in the transport, and the effects of the agri model that need a very large number of resources from outside. Also, in the present, the globalization show that we lost the biological ecosystems compartments that and the culture compartments that can assure the diversity in our planet and can be facilitate some mechanism of security in the past. Other question is that now all societies are very weak to adapt to the new scenarios. In the United States, the cost of the military cost are very important and reduce the capacity of action of this country. This country needs, by on side, to import from China and from other countries that, well, they are now the war factory, to obtain resource fundamental to make face to the crisis, but the other side maintain provocation on face to China, Cuba, Russia, etc. Also, the European Union countries ask for help to their enemies according to the military protocols of the NATO. This is also another difficulty of this technology structure. Not all the sectors are affected in the same way. In some sectors, the reduction of production can be temporal, but in others, for instance, tourism, transport, small commerce, probably we are faced on structural change and change on production structure. There are other sectors that perhaps can be benefit to obtain profits of this situation, as the big enterprise of internet distribution, the pharmaceutical industry, etc. Finally, we know that the financial and speculative sector is probably that collapse because there's excessive indebtedness and the failure of the valuation in the stock market. If in the case of the 2008, the crisis served to concentrate those capitals, now the effect can be different. We observe some new consequences, as for instance, a very important question is that the sovereign fund of China are nationalized through legal procedures in the capitalist world market. It is buy in the stock market. They are acquired a very important amount of the power of the property of the enterprise of that have their means of production in China. Enterprise that are made an enormous investment in the last 20 years from the countries of the center, United States, Europe, in China, and now they are lost a large part of this property. This financial crisis perhaps is not very important for the owners of the means of production. In fact, they not affect the property out of the case of the China of these means of production, but in any case produce very large readjustment between speculative capital and industrial capital. And other question that is very probable that that there will be a currency crisis, the relation of the dollar, crisis of the euro, that then can produce the loss of the saving money of the popular classes in the next future. This means a situation similar of the situation of Germany after the First World War, when the people lost, the popular classes lost absolutely their savings and lost their jobs. Then, in this sense, we can now some of the social, probably social consequence. First, this situation going to increase the number of people without work and without saving to survive. This situation drives the societies to a political crisis. Two, given that happened in 2008, the powerful class tried to use the crisis to get richer and expropriate the poorest and the public property. But now their room for maneuver is narrower due to, first, the system, the capitalist system, has lost legitimacy in the past crisis, and especially for the management of this crisis. Second, the capitalist states, especially European Union and United States, are very limited for their debt capacity and not have the same capacity to maneuver that in the past. Third, in the case of the European Union, this union is deeply fractured politically and culturally, and it is a failed project and without a political head that can impose proposals, precisely because of its neoliberal nature, which is created, impossibility met difficulties that the state, that the administration can develop real economic policy to recover the situation. Other item as the popular classes now have a window of opportunity to empower themselves and recover the rights, provided they are willing to fight for them. This depends on this, but the situation, the increasing of the poverty can facilitate this. And finally, in this situation, we know that in the beginning of the century, in the 20th century, the system will promote reactionary and also in solidarity option to preserve its privileges. Well, all of this show that we are going to a scene where the a strong class struggle can be present. By one side, the ruling class probably try to maintain a regressive redistribution of wealth. They not accept that in this reduction of production reduce their wealth. If from 25 to now the GDP are doubled, they not accept to share this part of increasing with the popular class, and then they try to defend the privatization of on the grounds that the state have not efficient, have not capacity to manage in the crisis, etc. Try to degrade in the public service, attributing the causes of their little effectiveness to the fact that they are public and hidden, and try to hidden the cuts that weakened those services in the past. They try to promote the control of the citizen from the private companies. This is an important question. They disaccredit when a state as China try to use systems to control the society to ensure management of the crisis, of the medical crisis. And they explain that this is an authoritarian state, etc. But in the fact, they private companies, as Google, collected an enormous amount of information, control the communication, and try to reduce the capacity of the people to use their freedom of expression and the freedom of association. They impose from the private companies a reduction of citizen rights. By other side, they try probably to sharpen the contradiction within the people. In this way, they will stimulate the conflict between farmers against urban workers, youth against the pensioners, men against the women, precarious people against the workers with a stable work, indigenous people against the migrant people. They will promote nationalist or religious hatred between the peoples. And finally, if he will resort, if it's necessary, to promote a neo-fascist to prevently restrain the popular resistance. By other side, the working people must articulate a response with their own program, claiming the program of the working people should be claim the public nature of the basic service, claim the social rights, starting by preventing one more from the begin, take from them and trying to recover the lost rights in health, education, working conditions, pension, etc. Try to change the system of taxation. Try to establish a fiscality where the people that have more incomes contribute more. They try promote finances at the service of the people, at the service of the majority, with public banking, with control of speculation, and monetary sovereignty. And the people should defend democracy and popular power. There are two programs confronted. The instruments for the ruling class is try to divide us and to confuse. They try to promote false news, fake news spread by formal means, as the communication companies, but also in informal media. Not forget that the needs of the social means are controlled by them. They pay boots, they use and manipulate these networks. They also try to hide information to avoid liability. If they become evident, they will initiate long legal proceedings to try to distract the people. They try to blame the popular class for the effects as causes of the epidemic, the irresponsible workers, the corruption of the politicals and the unions, the responsibility of the uneducated poor. They try to put the weight of the responsibility in the popular classes. Also, they try to pit regions, countries, and communities against each other. And they try to discredit the states that rule over the companies. They not like the states, the administration that have the capacity to over control these big companies. It's the case of the attacks against China, but also the attacks against the World Organization. They not like when the administration that try to represent the people are more force than the multinational companies. And finally, they tried in the emergency situation to buy the social peace with punctual charity. This is the case of the Trump checks, but also some measures that can be adopted by the European Union. They try to prevent the moments of the social collapse. Marx explained very well in the first book of the Capital how the capitalist system in England in the 19th century tried to prevent the insurrection of the people with the workforce, with the law of poor people, and with measures of emergency when they have the impression that they can lose the control. Then, this is the instruments of the power. But the instruments of the people, of the popular classes are others. We need first use the pedagogical instruments to explain the situation to the people. In particular, we need to make efforts to explain the failure of the privatizations in the service as health, education, personal care, funeral enterprise, transport, etc. Try to explain to the people the failure of the growth model that impoverishes the people and destroys the nature, depleting resources, causing climate change, destroying sustainable agriculture, etc. Try to explain that the solution is not increasing the growth, is to distribute work production and taxes. We need to fix in this explanation we use the control networks intelligently and selectively, without forgetting that these networks are controlled by the system. For instance, in Spain, all movements are constantly suffer closes in WhatsApp or in Facebook closures in the critical moments. We need to promote direct and militant action of the people, not only by telematic way. At this moment, we not have other option, but we need to find the people in the street, the fight the people person to person. They must, the people, they must go from the being passive bystanders to disaster to building of the political and economic alternative. The new construction not will be carried out from the sofa of home. But by other side, the other powerful popular instrument is the action. We need to promote through the action and concrete struggle on concrete uses that affect the people's survival and quality of life. It's not about making long and extensive programs, but articulating a concrete fight for reasons that the people know that they can win. It's not a matter of mobilization of the people for the end of the capitalism, but to raise wage or recover a lost right. What is revolutionary in this fight? We need to move from the rhetorical to be effective movement, concrete, to mobilize really large numbers of people for concrete questions. With the disappearance of the industrial factories in Europe, this fight is changing of a scenario. We see this with the yellow jackets in France, but also in other parts of Europe. It's a fight that will take place not only in the workplace, but also in the territory and in the communication hubs, including streets, squares, roads. The precariat, the people that is precariat cannot think in their company because he will be fired immediately, but he can block the roads with join with other people. The fifth program must be transversal and inclusive, trying to not accentuate the contradiction within the people, but rather looking for agreements within the popular classes. I put an example in the case of the pensionists in Spain. We in Spain, we have a situation between the pensionists very different. The sector most combative, meaning industry, public functionaries, have now relative high pension, but the weakness, women, self-employed, have very low pension. The system, when the people beginning to fight for increasing their pension, try to promote the idea that the low pensions can be increasing, lowering the highest one. Face of this, they try to increase the conflict inside the people. Well, the movement provide an answer. The movement has raised a proposal of 1,080 minimum pension for everybody, but at the same time propose the rising of the cost of the living for all the pension. This program allows for which everyone can fit. The 9 million of pensionists can be represented by this program that try to unite the people. Well, finally, what future? We don't know now if in the face of our struggle, the system will have the capacity to mutate and revive, as it did, for instance, with the welfare state after the Second World War. Some people can say to us that if we 15 only for concrete questions, the system can be recovered. Well, this is a very large futuristic discussion. But if we not fight, what is certain is that we will go to a more unjust, more oppressive, more unsustainable society in which the popular classes we see all suffering increasing, in which living conditions, life expectancy, social and labor rights are degraded, so the capital continues to grow and accumulate at need. But if we 15 effectively, perhaps this can be the final fight against the capitalists outside the international zone. It will depend on how far the working class are willing to go from the moment that they beginning to mobilize by millions of people for their concrete rights and concrete questions. The path, in Spanish, we say that the path is made by walking. Now, the active and concrete fight, this is the resource that we have in the hand, for the immediate social and labor rights is today the only path of hope and future, and that open the possibility of the socialist future. Thank you very much. I conclude with this my presentation. I hope that this can was understandable and comprehensible for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramon. Thank you for this very inspiring presentation, especially the part that relates to the path ahead. What can we do to keep ourselves active in the struggle, to keep on organizing in these unclear times? And what is the horizon? What is what we can expect from that struggle? So we have a couple of questions, and I think I'm going to start by mentioning the big elephant in the room. And I know that I'm asking someone that has a clear position on that. I'm talking about the role of the European Union and the European Union institutions that recently have finally, apparently, came to an agreement so as to how to mobilize the necessary resources for, they say, take care of the people, but we all know that's not true. What they have intended is to come to an agreement to mobilize the resources to reactivate the economy, or at least to pump money into the private sector and the financial sector. But basically they disagreed on how they're going to force the working class to pay. And we all know that's exactly their intention. They want to mobilize resources now, activating debt mechanisms, and then making the working class to pay. So the question would be, how is the role of the European Union in this crisis going to determine what happened next? So how can we expect from conditionality? What can we expect from the European Union, and especially the countries in the north, imposing draconian measures and furthering austerity from the current crisis?
Well, first of all, it's very difficult to know exactly what is the nature of the present proposals. In fact, they are not at present a proposal for rebuilding the situation. In fact, the present agreements are only an acceptation that the countries can increasing their budget to solve the immediate problems, to pay medical resources, to pay some social immediately measures, etc. Then they are not agree on a new fiscal system. They are agree to allow that the states can increasing their budget, because in fact there are the present action of France, Spain, Italy is forbidden, is not legal. They accept now, the Commission accept this illegality. But we observe that many of these measures at this moment are addressed to the private sector. In many countries, the resources are addressed to the banking, to the financial system. Then we observe a repetition and anew of the 2008 situation to now. I put an example. The Spanish government tried to exempt the people to pay the rent, in some cases, the rent for their houses, the people that lost the work. But this money is not addressed to the people. It's addressed to the banking, that the banking facilitate the credit, the resources to the people. Other time, anew, the banking are the real receptionists of the public funds. Then we need to observe in the future the concrete way for that these funds are addressed. But at this moment, they are only an agreement of peace transitory. The powerful countries and the Commission, Germany, Holland, and the Commission accept that Italy and Spain increasing their budget, but not establish a new plan Marshall. They are not a project on the table. They are only an precary action. And when we ask to us if this situation can be or can be changed, in fact, the European Union have a very important problem. By one side, they are lost their legitimacy in the South country and also in the East country. Their promises are failed in Greece, in Spain. All the austerity are produced not a recovery, but a poverty. But in the other side, in Germany, in Holland, that the people are also suffer the austerity, the explanation provided to the people is the failure of the union is because the people of the south not working, no are productive, sleeping many hours, etc., etc., etc. Then the public opinion is against any Keynesian, any public measure to compensate this situation. They stimulate this cultural conception to reinforce the neoliberal policies, but now the problem as the people of these countries that suffer also the austerity, their explanation, fake explanation, but they believe this, is the responsibility is the people of the South. It's not the private German banks, it's not the bigger companies. No, no, it's the people of the South. In this context, there are not a cultural consensus in the union to develop efforts at the level that is necessary in this moment. But in any case, it's very difficult to establish a discussion on the future of this. That is clear as that in any case, we need the faith of the people. We need the mobilization of the people. If not, the regression inside the union or inside the political level is many probable.
Thank you very much, Ramon. We have one last question. Sorry?
I don't know if I answered your questions, but about the European Union. But I think that in this moment is very difficult to go any far from this. These are at present are provisional measures, and they are not a policy plan to recover this situation. For also the same in the United States. In the United States, there are not any idea about change the model of production. The only idea is provide the check of $1,000 to the people to stop the rebellion. But they are not a plan, because it's not only because Trump is an stupid. The problem is there are very discussions and conflict inside the power, the upper class about who made in this situation.
Thank you very much. There is one last question, not many. Oh, there is another question here. We had another one in the pipeline. You mentioned in your presentation the importance of confronting this discourse and this narrative of confrontation between peoples. So the native or the indigenous with respect to the foreign or the migrants, and how that is a real risk of feeding into this this race of the far right and extremism of far right and racism throughout Europe. So the question is, can you give a concrete example of struggle between nationals or native or indigenous, whatever we want to call them, and migrant organizations or migrant working class in your country?
Well, I can explain positive examples. We try here, I am in Catalonia, we tried in the social movements of Catalonia to avoid the risk of confrontation between nationalist people, Catalan nationalist people and non-Catalan nationalist people. We try also in the social movements maintain the unity, the union between immigrants and nationals. For instance, in the fight of the social movement in defense of the public wealth, insanity, Marea Blanca, one of the elements is the universal provide to everybody the right to access to the hospitals. This try to establish unity between people of different procedents. The fascists try to establish the idea that first the national. Our nation is better than the other. We are best language, best traditions than the others, etc., etc., etc. But in fact, at this moment, we can observe in this example of the public wealth, the public sanity, that it's not possible to prevent an epidemic disease if you excluded a part of the population. We need to include all the people. If we exclude a part of the people, the immigrant people, we have problems for the immigrants and for the indigenous. And then this is the kind of pedagogy that the social movements need to improve and enlarge, in my opinion. Right?
Thank you very much, Ramon. In that sense, I remember that we also received in Barcelona, there is this organization of the Migrant Trade Union it's mostly sub-Saharan workers, but they're organized in the Sindicato Mantero and others, and they have participated in this initiative, like 7-point program, asking for the basic motto is papers for everyone. Yeah, and they detail a number of measures.
Now we in Catalunya have an alliance of social movements, and in the last encounter in the fall of the summer past, around the half of the organization are from the migration of Latin America, from the migration from the Maghreb, from this part of the social movements are the immigration. It's also the same that in the case of the yellow jackets in France. It's a way to include everybody. They include together the people with all their origin. The capitalists try to divide us. We need to try to construct program and organization that unite the people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. We have where I come from Madrid. There is an anthem there. I think it's in the whole Spanish state. In English, I think it would translate something like native or foreign, the same working class. So I think that message of unity is very, very important. We have one last question before bringing this seminar to an end. I'm going to read it from the chat. What would be a strategy to change the functions and agenda of the European Central Bank?
Well, it's a very difficult. It's a very difficult question. In fact, the problem is the European Central Bank is designed to promote the neoliberal economy. It's a bank that is not submitted to the public control because not exist an European government. Then, to have a monetary union without fiscal union is the path to destroy the social rights. Then now it's very difficult to manage this question because, in fact, the bank have their statutes, they have the procedures, and in fact is independent of the commission and the parliament. I think that in this context, there are no solution on this. The only solution is cut with this monetary system and try to build some monetary system controlled by the people. This suppose that before you do that, the establish monetary union, we need to establish unitary fiscal system. There are no problem to unite the monetary, the system monetary of France, Italy, Spain, but before it's necessary to establish the same fiscal system. If not, this is to return to the patron gold that the running in the 19th century, that is a very good scenario for the private capital. At this moment, I understand that at the tactical level, it's possible to demand enlarge Eurobonos or enlarge that, but I think that with all of the tactical questions, we need to explain that this financial system are not feasible. It can provide an outcome, and before or after they go to collapse. And probably they collapse not for the fight of the people. They collapse for the conflicts between the upper class of Europe, of the different countries of Europe.
Well, thank you very much, Ramon. I think we had a very, very interesting topic brought to the table. I think that we managed to identify some of the most important strategies or actions that we could undertake as organizations, as social movements in Europe. And I want to thank you very much for being here with us, for giving us a very good presentation about what is at stake right now. And I especially want to thank you because I know that this week has been a rough one, because I know that there is this very dear comrade of yours and of ours that very sadly has left us. He died on April the 14th, and he was a victim of coronavirus. His name is, and will always be, Albert Escoffet. I just want to share his image so that everyone in this webinar can. So it's this one here. So a very dear comrade, a very hard fighter. His whole life, a former general secretary of the PSUC, which was the Communist Party, the Unified Socialist Party of Catalunya. So I know it's very hard for you. I know that it's been rough for you and the comrades. So I would like to thank you for being here despite the pain and the grief that we all feel in this moment. I would like to make a couple of short announcements. First of all, well, thank you everyone for being with us in this second webinar in this series that we want to take further. The first announcement is that we had planned to go on with our series on Monday with a seminar on well, all the discussion about minimum rent, UBI, etc. But we have sadly we have decided to postpone it due to a number of circumstances. We will be postponing that seminar, and we will be shortly announcing a new date when that seminar can take place again. And lastly, I would like to share also two events or two campaigns that are happening today, April the 17th. The first one is the commemoration, or rather the celebration of the International Day of Peasants. So we wanted to share with you the call that, well, let me get that straight, please. Oh, there you go. It's a call for supporting this solidarity campaign. It's called the International Day of Peasants' Struggle. It's going to be a tweet action throughout the day. It started in the morning and it's going to go on until the end of the day. Also in the rest of the world. So in Latin America, they started a few hours ago, and that's going to continue until the end of the day. The hashtag, if you want to join, is Peasants' Rights Now. And it's an action that has been promoted by La Vía Campesina Internacional and has been also adhered by the International People's Assembly. That's the first one. And the second one, very quickly, I would like to share. Sorry for the twitching, not twitching, etc. Today is also a day in which we commemorate the struggle of political prisoners throughout the world. And this is a campaign that has been, is supported by the International Week of Anti-Imperialist Struggle. So there is also an action on social networks that you may want to support. There is also the day of the solidarity with the Palestinian prisoners in particular. So these two campaigns in a way come together in the same day. So we just wanted to give you the heads up for these two campaigns that are ongoing. We, in the people and the organizations, movements that are working in the International Week of Anti-Imperialist Struggle, consider very important, and in line with the message that Ramon was also giving us, to build spaces of unity, to build unity of action, to provide and to work all together, all organizations, movements, parties, trade unions in this critical moment in history, to give ourselves the right tools for being stronger, for accumulating strength, and for fighting all together against capitalism and towards a new world. So thank you very much, everyone. Keep in touch. Hold the line for new announcements and new webinars, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Thank you, Ramon. Gracias. Adeu.